Hello everyone. Welcome back to Cooking 101. I'm Jen. I'm a dietitian. I'm not a professional chef. But part of what I do for a living is, a big part of it, is help people discover what they can cook for themselves that's more healthy than what they might be doing. A lot of people who I work with one-on-one are like, I don't know what to cook, I'm in a rut, I always cook this way, but I'm told this way is unhealthy. These are all dietitian problems I help with. So I figured I'd kind of turn that format into a show that I do for free on weekends. Especially with COVID happening, a lot of people were stuck in their homes, cooking more than they were used to, or cooking for the first time in some cases. So this was to kind of help people with that. Help you guys find your way into cooking new, more interesting, tasty things that were also good for you. So today we are going to do a dessert. It's called Clafoutis, or at least that's what I thought it was called. It turns out Clafoutis is only for cherries. I don't know why. A lot of people call this Clafoutis anyway. It's French. But apparently, if it's cherries, it's Clafoutis, and if it's anything else, it's called flonard. Or if you really want to have a good laugh, it's like flognard. It's spelled really fun because French words are always spelled really fun. It's a regional dish. If you went to Paris and you were like, give me your most authentic Clafoutis, they would be like, what? Because it's not from that region. It's kind of a country region thing. So it's often made with stone fruit. I have so many plums in my house. My CSA sent me plums 3 weeks in a row, and I don't like plums. At least I don't like plums as they are, which is weird because I like almost everything. But plums are sour, and also weird because I like sour things, but not when you're like eating it as a fruit. Like I wouldn't sit there and eat a lemon. It's not a thing I like. So I don't really eat them, and so I feel bad about throwing things out, and I've been sitting on these plums week after week, and they're just literally piling up in my fridge, and I was like, what am I going to do? Well, baking fruit into some sort of pastry-like thing has always been much more appealing, and I found out that I love plums if they're baked with sugar and flour and all sorts of delicious things. So I'm going to show you what to do with your fruit in case you want to know what to do if you have a bunch of fruit that you're not really into eating but you want to eat more fruit. So this is technically a dessert. It is not a healthy dessert, but it is healthier, and we're going to talk about calories and what goes into it, than other desserts. I'm also going to make this gluten-free. I'm avoiding wheat for the most part because it makes me expand, and I don't like that. So I'm going to make a gluten-free version of this. I will tell you how to make a regular version of this. I do not know how to make a vegan version of this because it's very egg heavy, and I'm not very well versed in how to cook with vegan eggs in a pastry type setting. It's also technically not really a pastry. Clafoutis is, or flonard, it's somewhere between flan and a pancake. It's like in this weird middle ground between those two things. It's kind of soft and custardy in the middle, but it puffs up real nice like a pancake might, and you bake it in the oven for like an hour, and it gets a little golden brown on top. And then you just want to eat the whole thing in one sitting. But don't do that because there's too many calories in this. I have said this before, when I cook with sugar, I don't really mess around with it. Sugar affects the way something chemically comes out. Now, if you are worried about consuming sugar, you can always substitute it out for fake sugar, Splenda, whatever you like. However, this does not make it guilt-free perfect. If you are substituting out the sugar, there's still other carbs here. So again, this is not like I'll just mess around with the recipe and it'll be super healthy and I'll eat it all the time. However, it's higher in protein than your average pastry is. 3 eggs go into this. It is an egg-based custard almost, / pancake, custard pancake. And when you put in almond flour and oat flour, it I don't know, it sort of helps, it doesn't help. I can't really tell you what to do here, but I'm just going to tell you that there's no such thing as a healthy version of a dessert. You're going to have carbs, you're going to have calories, you're going to have sugar, you're going to have a sweetener of some sort. You can cut the sweetener, but like you're going to still crave the sweetness. Cutting a sweetener doesn't get rid of your cravings for sweet things. It just makes you crave sweeter things because fake sweetener is sweeter than sugar. So if you're like, I'd really like to get sugar out of my system altogether, this recipe is not for you. If you're like, I'd really like to get sugar out of my system, so I'm going to use NutraSweet or Splenda, that's not going to work either, because since it's sweeter than sugar, your taste buds are now acclimated to even sweeter things, and eating a piece of fruit by itself is not going to be appealing to you. So my best advice is be smart about your portions. If you're going to use sugar, be extra smart about what you're eating. I like to treat this as a breakfast. I'm going to eat it as a late breakfast today because I got up late today. And maybe a brunch, a late day brunch. And just be aware of your portions because I broke down all of the calories and I'm going to tell you how much you can eat of this. And it's actually a lot. So here's what we do. Grab yourself a baking pan. This is my baking pan. Look at it. It has all the plums in it. It has a mixture of tiny plums and big plums because I got so many different species of plums. I didn't know there were so many. Cut your plums in half, take the pits out, and put them cut side down in your baking tray. Now, you can grease the pan if you want. You don't have to. The first time I did this, I didn't grease the pan. It was pretty much fine. This is a very moist dish, so you don't have to worry so much about it. I greased it this time just to see what would happen for my own science. But you don't have to add those calories if you don't want to. Just take your fruit, cut it in half. If you're not using plums, this can be peaches, this can be nectarines, it can be cherries. It's an authentic Clafoutis. Put it cut side down on here, and then we add the sugar. Here comes the sugar. Now, the original recipe called for 3 tablespoons of sugar on the fruit and 3 tablespoons of sugar in the recipe. I'm messing with it a bit. I did this before. I'm cutting down on the sugar a little bit. So 6 tablespoons of sugar is a lot of calories. It's about, 50 calories per tablespoon. So 6 kind of gets up there a little bit. So I cut it down to about 4. I put a little sugar on here because, as I said, plums are a little sour. If you're not using plums, you might not want to put sugar on your fruit. You don't need to. There's no necessary reason to put it on there. I saved the 3 tablespoons of sugar for the recipe because, again, it's 6 altogether. I saved the right amount for the batter because when you mess with sugar in a ratio to a batter, it can kind of mess with the chemical balance. Baking is very much like chemistry, so if you take sugar out, you might not create the light fluffiness that you need. It can really affect how much it rises and things like that because sugar creates air pockets in recipes. So I left the batter sugar alone, and I'll let the batter sweeten this. And I'm just going to use a tiny bit, 1 tablespoon instead of 3, to dust this, and that's just because it's sour fruit. If you are using different fruits, sweet cherries, peaches, which are the best, nectarines, I wouldn't add the fruit, or I wouldn't add the sugar at all. Obviously you have to add the fruit. But you don't really have to worry about the sugar for a sweeter fruit. I'm just adding a little to this because they're plums. Plums are sour. I don't want the sour. You don't have to do this though. You can have this be sour and just let the batter inform the flavor. That's a nice contrast as well, actually, and not a bad thing. So you might want to try it that way. But we've cut down the amount of sugar to 4 instead of 6. I actually wrote down the calories here. I'm going to check my little reference sheet. Okay, so 4 tablespoons of sugar is about 390 calories, as opposed to 6, which is a lot more. So we're good here. That can't be right. I've done bad math. Oh no. Okay. So obviously 6 is not as good as 4, so we're doing 4. Okay, so I put my 1 tablespoon of sugar on the plums. That's good to go. We just leave that alone. Now we're going to make the batter. So start yourself off with 3 eggs. gonna crack it. I cracked very easily. So I took my eggs out about 20 minutes ago. If you bring your eggs to room temperature, which these are not, but they are warmer than they were, they bake better. I don't know why. Just chemically, they come out a little bit fluffier a little bit later. So if you can take your eggs out and let them sit for a little bit, do so. This is a Julia Child recommendation. So I didn't invent this, but I'm going to recommend it. So you crack your 3 eggs into a bowl. What's really nice about this recipe is a lot of baking is like take your wet ingredients, put them in one bowl. Take your dry ingredients, put them in another. This is like get all your ingredients in a bowl and mix it. Just do it. Very simple. Alright, I'm out of eggs. So I got my 3 eggs. So this is a mixture of oat flour and almond flour. Calorie-wise, so this is 1/3 cup of each type of flour. 1/3 of a cup of almond flour is 213 calories. Almonds are pretty high in calories because they have fat. So almond flour is going to have more calories than oat flour. The 1/3 of a cup of oat flour has 160 calories. So here's the two together. Wheat flour, whole wheat or white, is higher in calories. But you do you. This is gluten-free. It actually works out really well. And I did a mixture of almond and oat. The recipe I used said a mixture of almond and wheat or almond and almond. I like oat flour because it has fewer calories and it has more fiber and protein. So I just kind of put it together like that. Almond flour also on its own can be a little bit dense, so I just decided to go with just the oat flour and keep it from being the densest clafoutis ever. I am noticing there's something in my milk. I don't know what it is. Some sort of something. It's a kitchen with stuff floating around. That stuff happens. Okay, so we've added 3 eggs, 1/3 cup of almond flour, 1/3 cup of oat flour, 3 tablespoons of sugar. Now, you may be asking, can I substitute honey? Can I substitute agave syrup? Can I substitute maple syrup? For this, I would not do a syrup. This is a very loose batter. It's going to be very liquid looking. It looks like pancake batter. If you substitute a liquid sweetener, it's going to make it run all over the place. It may not rise correctly. It may not be as fluffy. It may just be soup. So I don't recommend a liquid sweetener. However, you can buy a dehydrated version of one of those if you really, really want to. Does it make a difference? Not really. Sugar is sugar is sugar. That's kind of the saying I use with all my patients. So don't worry about it. Just add your sugar. We've cut it down from 6 to 4 here. You can even cut it down to 3 to just have the sugar in the batter if you weren't using sour fruit, which I am using. So that's what I recommend, is don't mess around with the chemical components, as it were. Okay, next, 1 1/3 cup of milk. So I just pour that in. It's going to look real soupy. That's okay. This looks like it won't form anything solid, but it does. Because science. Okay, so the final ingredients, little pinch of salt. Literal pinch. I'm pinching the salt, putting it in. Salt brings out flavor. Little pinch, never hurt anybody. This recipe called for lemon zest. I don't have a lemon on me, and I, truth be told, forgot. So what I'm doing is I am putting in a little lemon juice. Why am I doing that? Acids bring out flavor just like salt does. And the last time I used lemon juice, it tasted great, so I'm doing it again. Alright. Adding acids here and there to baking can sometimes mess with it, but this is a custard. I'm not too worried about it. It doesn't really curdle anything. There's not enough in there. Okay, next is a tablespoon of good vanilla extract. I don't know if I have enough. No, I have enough. It's totally fine. Yeah. Get the good stuff. Alright, vanilla extract. Then it says a pinch of nutmeg, which means I'm just going to take this and tap, tap, Yeah, a little bit more. Tap. And just for funsies, the recipe doesn't call for this, but I feel like it might be nice. So a very light tap of cinnamon as well. You don't want to overwhelm the flavors, but I do like cinnamon. I feel like cinnamon would work for this. Okay, so I put this all in a bowl. This recipe says use a food processor. I did not want to use my food processor because my food processor is huge and then I would have to clean it, and that's a lot of work that I don't feel like doing right now. So if you have one, get yourself a stick blender. They're awesome. This is food processor on the go. I have a tall bowl so it doesn't splash everywhere, but you can do this in a food processor. You can also do it in a mixer. You can do it in a blender. The food processor they recommend because it'll make the egg really frothy. The frothier the egg is, the more light and fluffy this is going to come out. So we want bubbles. We want something close to getting the egg whites starting to form a solid without going that far. You're not making meringue here. I'm sorry, I have a hair on my lip. We're not making meringue. We're not making anything crazy, stiff, egg whitey type stuff. Don't do that because that is going to change the entire chemical composition and texture of this. But you want to make this frothy, get some bubbles in here. So I'm going to take my little stick blender, stick it right in here, and go. Making a big mess. It's great. This is what baking is all about. Okay, so there is the batter. Now I'm just trying to take the blade off so I don't make a mess. Come on. There it goes. Pop the blade off. There we go. Now I can put the motor over here. And when I say I want like a nice frothy batter with lots of air bubbles, that's what it looks like. Good stuff here. So that's got a little air in it to make this puff up. It's going to almost be like a souffle where it puffs up in the oven. It's going to collapse when you bring it out. Don't worry about that. I mean, that's pretty normal for a souffle, even though people don't desire that. But for this, that's almost guaranteed to happen. It's heavy with the fruit in it, so if it's like a lovely bubble in the oven and you take it out and it deflates, don't worry about that. Also, I just need to reiterate, because I feel like I didn't explain this enough, I put lemon juice in milk. That's usually a bad thing because acids curdle dairy. I used a small amount compared to the amount of dairy in here, and then I stirred with the blender, and luckily nothing curdled. But I was being a little reckless there. That's why the recipe calls for lemon zest over lemon juice. But it's okay. Everything turned out well. If it curdles, I mean, it's not the end of the world. It might affect the texture. You can still go ahead and use it. Just be careful if you're going to add lemon juice to anything with dairy. Stir a lot. Stir as you're adding. That way the milk will stay intact. So that I just needed to add that little tidbit. Alright, so we have our little bubbly frothy pancake batter. We're going to just pour it over all the fruit. Get it all in there. Every little bit. Drip, drip, drip. Alright, and that is really it. I'm going to take this, I'm going to put it in my oven for an hour, and it's going to come out, and I will post a photo of how pretty it is, but since it takes so long to cook, I'm not going to make you sit here. Also, because this is a big thing, I couldn't really make it ahead of time and then make it again, because then I'd be up to my eyeballs in Clafoutis, and I only have one baking pan anyway, so it's fine. If you tune into my Instagram, which I believe is JS Rock RD, but I sometimes forget what it's spelled as. But I think it's JS Rock RD. You will be able to see a photo of the finished product once it comes out of the oven. So you put it in the oven at 375 degrees, which this doesn't want to stay at because I have a 400 and a 350, but no middle. Tiny oven, guys, but brand new tiny oven. And I can look through the window now and watch this bake, and I'm really excited about that. So put it in the oven, 375 degrees, 50 to 60 minutes. You'll know when it's done. It'll start taking on the slightly golden brown coloring on top, and it'll be a little bit puffy. The texture, again, is going to be a little custardy. Don't worry, it's cooked. You haven't undercooked it. It's like a custard pancake. It's awesome. So let's talk. Let me get this in the oven going, and then we will talk about calories and serving size. All important things when you are eating sugar. Okay. So we're going to set the clock. It took about an hour last time, so I'll set the clock for that. Alright, so our clafoutis in the oven. It's going to be awesome. It's going to smell great. I'm very excited about it. Now you've made a dessert. You don't want to overeat. What do? So for this one, at least, I have done you all a favor and calculated all of the calories to give you a proper serving size. Altogether, everything we put in here, 3 eggs, milk, sugar, 2 types of flour, almond and oat flour, and fruit, all come out to roughly 1,100 calories. So for some people, that actually might be all their calories in a day. That's a lot. It's pretty close to all the calories in a day. For me, I eat like 1,600 calories a day, and that's because I'm active and also small. But you might eat a little bit more, you might eat a little bit less. But I should never eat that whole thing. Luckily, and the reason I like this over other pastries, the eggs, the oat flour fiber, the fruit, which is high in fiber and low in calorie, all help fill you up. So it's hard to eat this whole pan, even if you want to. But a proper serving size is, the whole thing's 1,100 calories, 1/4 to 1/3 of the pan, which is a good amount. It's like, you don't really need more than that unless you're starving to death and this is like your only meal of the day, which, don't do that. Don't skip meals. Don't do like I did today. But you can eat a whole third of the pan, and it comes out to like 300-ish calories, which, not bad. That's pretty low. You can eat half the pan, and that's 500-ish calories. That's what I would call a full-on meal, though. Like, this would be your brunch extravaganza, as a 500-calorie, half the pan thing, which I might actually do. But if you're eating this as a dessert, I would say make it closer to 1/4 of a pan. Desserts are just supposed to be small anyway. They're not supposed to be bigger than your main meal. But that way, it's more like 260, 270 calories that you're adding into your daily intake. So it depends on how you're eating this. It can be a nice breakfast. It can be a dessert. If it's a dessert, smaller, 1/4 of the pan or less. Little square out of the pan on 1/4 of the pan. Perfect. This can be divided into about 8 servings. So 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, and then you cut the quarters in half. That's a dessert size. For a giant breakfast meal, I'm going to probably end up eating 1/3 because that's what I ate last time. And that's all I had room for. So it is, thankfully, filling. Listen to your gut. Don't try to force more in there than fits. That's the other secret to not overeating, is just listen to how hungry you are. But yeah, it's surprisingly, like, in the realm of desserty baked goods, this is surprisingly low in calories and a little bit more forgiving than your average baked good. So that's why I love it. And it helps me eat the fruit that I was feeling guilty about not eating, and I get it all out of the way in one big baked extravaganza. So good stuff all around. So that's the realm of clafoutis / flonard. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm really going to enjoy it when it comes out of the oven, and I hope I remember to take a photo before I eat it, because I didn't last time. But I hope you guys like that, and if you have any questions about how to incorporate sweet things into your life when you want to eat better, You can always leave a message in the comments. You can send me a message. Or if you would like to work with me, even if it's like a one-on-one single session where you're just like, I have a list of questions that I need to get figured out here, I can do that. Make an appointment with me. My website is jrockrd.com and my schedule is up and open. If you guys have any questions, feel free to contact me. Otherwise, I will see you at the next Cooking 101. Take care.